More breaking news coming in. More and more nations are now coming out in support of Venezuela, where Chile has condemned military action by US, calling for peaceful solution to the conflict. Remember, Chile is not the only nation. In fact, even Russia that has condemned the US strikes against Venezuela, and even as more and more nations are now coming in support of Venezuela, calling out the escalation by United States on Venezuela. In fact, even Spain that has vouched for mediation for a peaceful resolution. This, as Venezuela has said it clearly, they will not bow down, they will not surrender, they will not negotiate, they will not tolerate foreign troops on their soil. Venezuela assessing the extent of damage that has been done to their nation, especially in the capital of Caracas. Chile now saying that foreign interference is not a solution, and more nations now coming out in support of Venezuela. Rohit, I want to take this to you to understand to what extent is the US prepared when it comes to any possible action, not just from Venezuela, but even its allies, and primarily this action being viewed by the world today of what America has done?
I think that there are two views here, Suesha. First is that I think we've also seen a new statement come from the EU now that says that, Maduro, was an illegitimate president. He stole elections to have power. I think multiple, states are coming and not supporting, but saying, whatever has happened, but now they want a peaceful resolution. They want this war not to be prolonged. So I think we'll have to wait and watch how this develops over the next few hours. I think once we hear back from President Trump at his press conference at Mar-a-Lago, I think we'll be able to understand what America wants to do next. But, to your earlier question, Suesha, what you were asking, there are three possible scenarios that can happen now, right? So according to the Constitution of Venezuela, they should invoke Article 233, which would mean that Delcy Rodríguez could become the interim president, and then the elections must be held in the next 30 days, and whoever wins that election would serve a full 6-year term. So that's one possibility. The other would be that, look, this sizable action would not have happened if there were no insiders helping the US. So we might be able to see some senior figures that could resign, defect, or even flee or support the US plan. So we'll have to wait and watch how that happens. The other, outstanding variable at this point in time is that Edmundo González, he's currently in exile in Spain. He, according to Machado, is kind of the rightful president. He was exiled into Spain, and he's also backed by Maria Corina Machado, who claims that they are the ones who should be able to form a government. Or the third would be, which I think could possibly be something that the US would probably want, would be a military takeover. So you could see Defense Minister Vladimir Lopez essentially, taking control and basically becoming a dictator in place. So we'll have to see what happens. But these are the three possible scenarios that can happen. Most likely, I think we will probably be able to deduce what plans the US has after President Trump speaks. But at this point in time, we'll probably see all these leaders and head of state from various countries, especially in the West, come out, and we'll see that asking about, hey, Maduro was wrong. He stole election. He was a tyrant. He was not nice to his people. He was participating in smuggling drugs across in the South America and in America. And then he was not a legitimate president, but also asking for a peaceful resolution. So we'll have to wait and watch how that plans out. But I think this, shocked a lot of people, but have to wait and watch what President Trump says. But there are three possible scenarios here.
All right, Rohit, do stay on. Let's listen into that statement that came in from Donald Trump, and then, of course, how the Defense Minister of Venezuela has responded to the ongoing developments. This as Donald Trump is set to lead a full-fledged news conference at 9:30 as per Indian Standard Time tonight. Let's listen in to those reactions, after which I come back to you, Rohit.
What should we do to stop that? He has offered everything. He's offered everything. You're right. You know why? Because he doesn't want to f around with the United States.
La Fuerza Armada Nacional Bolivariana informa al mundo entero que en la madrugada de hoy, 3 de enero, el pueblo venezolano ha sido objeto de la más criminal agresión militar por parte del gobierno de los Estados Unidos de Norteamérica. Hasta el momento, la barbarie de las fuerzas invasoras que han profanado nuestro suelo sagrado en las localidades de Fuerte Tiuna, Caracas, los estados Miranda, Aragua y La Guaira, llegando a impactar con sus misiles y cohetes disparados desde sus helicópteros de combate en urbanismos de población civil, para lo cual estamos ya levantando la información referente a heridos y muertos.
De los daños causados por el ataque criminal, el ataque terrorista contra nuestro pueblo, contra el suelo patrio, contra las instalaciones eléctricas, contra la revolución bolivariana y contra aquellos que inclusive no tienen nada que ver con la revolución bolivariana. Es un ataque contra Venezuela, contra la República Bolivariana de Venezuela.
Right, I want to come back to you because again, what justifies US action in Venezuela? Under what legal framework are they going to justify it? And if a similar attack was carried by any other global superpower, would the US administration accept the same justification?
Well, I think, Suesha, nobody should be surprised that America holds itself to absolutely different standard when it comes to themselves doing this. And it was all started by President Bush in 2003 when the US decided to invade Iraq at all costs. So I think there are different, reasons that standards, I should say, that America adopts when it talks about, what they should do versus what others should do. So that's number one. The other part is, America has had a warrant against Maduro for the longest time. Multiple White House presidents, and White House administrations have tried to remove Maduro from power, and including engaging with him, including empowering the opposition and calling him out at all times. So I think President Trump and, more importantly, Secretary Rubio, who designated some of the organization that Maduro is associated with as terrorist organization, has said that he would stand trial in the US, meaning that this was somebody that the US had been wanting for a long time, and that we will give him a legal trial in the US because he's associated with this terrorist organization. They have been, or his people, himself, has been pushing drugs into the US, and that is punishable by law in the US. So I think that's the line that the US will take, that look, we've taken out this person who we think is responsible for thousands of lives in the US, and that he should not be left in Venezuela. He deserves to come and to this trial and whatever the US courts decides. The only difference is that he's the head of the state, and President Trump has directed this big operation, knowing fully that there could be consequences. There would be a condemnation coming from a lot of quarters at the world stage, but he's very decisive. And I think that's the message he wants to send, not only, to Venezuela, but also to the world. Look, a day ago, he was threatening the Iranians that if they actually are not, if they suppress, the Iranians suppress protesters in Iran, he would take an action against them too. So this serves as a warning, globally to everybody that you cannot be crossing the US lines. And if President Trump thinks he can take action, he will take action. So we'll have to wait and watch. But the cover for President Trump and Secretary Rubio is that this person, this individual is a felon, and he should be in the US. He should go to a trial, and we will see what needs to happen. But geopolitically, as we've all been saying, it's very layered. I think America, by this one action, has been able to do multiple things. First, make sure that they have a regime in Venezuela that's supportive of the US. We've seen how Venezuela was closer to the Russians and the Chinese. The oil, always been a concern of the US, what happens to energy in the future. So America will directly or indirectly control oil. And third, now you will finally have full secure, what America calls the Western Hemisphere, that America would not have a threat from the Chinese, who've been growing a lot of influence in this region. So I think this is a very important layered decision by President Trump, which will have consequences and ramifications for decades to come, not just today, not just tomorrow, for decades to come. So I think we'll have to wait and watch how the president wants to approach it next. But as of right now, two questions remain. First, who takes control in Venezuela? B, are they aligned with the US or not?